Hey everyone, this is Kristi Schweitzer at the Ashland Times-Gazette, and in this podcast segment you'll hear some history of Daleroy School and the Board of Developmental Disabilities here in Ashland. Longtime board member Nancy Tallmadge shares about her involvement in the early days as well as her introduction to Down syndrome with her son Rick. This year is also the 50th anniversary of the Ohio Senate Bill 169 that formalized the Developmental Disabilities Board, and so you'll also hear from Adult Services Director Bruce Kramer and Board Superintendent Dave Ashley. Enjoy the podcast.
Well, he was born in '60, and I can remember, I wasn't told when he was born that he was anything different. I can recall the fact that I thought he was a much prettier baby than the other two kids. And I didn't know Down syndrome then. And of course it was mongoloid then, it wasn't Down syndrome. And it was a few months after he was born in May, and this would have been around Christmas time. I was working at the College of Worcester, and a friend of my sister's was working there. And she went to a mutual friend working there at the time and told her, "Did you know Nancy has a mongoloid idiot?" That's exactly what she said. And this girl got so upset about it, she came and told me that. Well, I went to the doctor and told him, he was a small town doctor in Apple Creek, and I told him what they had said, and he said, my daughter's worn glasses and been different and like it was no problem. Well, he was in Europe sometime after that, and I went to Dr. Dixon at Worcester Clinic, good pediatrician, great guy, and told him about it. And he confirmed, yes, he indeed was mongoloid. And so from there we started to, look for services. And as I mentioned, we knew the Grassmans, and they invited me to go to a meeting at the institution because we lived over there at the time. And so from there I started working with them and went to some meetings at the Worcester program. And then because of my husband's father's health situation, we moved back here to Ashland County and got involved here. And at that time, the mothers who started this program had been working since, the mid-50s, I think they started. So 4 or 5 years, they were working and having meetings, and we were meeting, I went to their meetings, and they were meeting upstairs over at Frere House. And,
next door.
And Helen Dowk, of the Dowks associated with the university, her son, she was very active. She wasn't a parent, but she was very active as secretary of the Ashland County Council for Retarded Children, which was made up of granges and churches and all sorts of representative groups that started the effort to build the school. And Doyle Sainer, whose sister was in the program, and George Dever, who I don't believe he had anybody, but George and Doyle were friends. They were very active in helping to run the council, and we would meet monthly, and eventually we came to the point of deciding to build the school. But at that time we had a workshop too, and Beehive was the workshop supervisor.
They put a 3/10 of a mill levy on to build the school, and it paid school off in 4 years, $125,000 to build the school.
Boy, if we could do that today.
Wow. They took that levy off early.
Because it was paid for?
Because it was paid for, the auditor.
Yeah. And then we had still had a pretty strong parent and community council that worked with the program, and we had lots of fundraising. I mean, we didn't have the monies from the county then that we have now. I mean, we had some, but everything was it was fired by the parents and those of the community. The community really was behind us then, and I think they still in general are now. We used to have what we called, it was a statewide hike bike where the kids got, I think it was like, I forget how many miles, and I remember being chairman of it one year, and in one day we earned like $14,000. They had pledges and things. Of course, $14,000 in one day took weeks to get together. But then we had tasting parties and just all kinds of things, bake sales and rummage sales and so forth, that once we got funding behind us, why we didn't have to do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Of course, that we lost a lot of parent interest then, and parents then weren't as involved with working and such as they are now, so we had a lot more parent support than we do now. It's hard to get parents together.
It's interesting, the school was built in 61, but as late as 67, they were still getting funds from different organizations just to get the vehicles to transport.
Yeah.
So you think the school's there and you automatically think, well, there were some way students were getting to that school. It really wasn't the case, was it?
No.
People were volunteering and using their own vehicles.
And then when we bought I can remember the station wagon, and I drove the station wagon. I was on the board and I drove a station wagon too. And Courtwright didn't like that. He thought that was conflict of interest.
Oh, really?
Which it was.
Yeah.
But he never did anything about it. And so I drove for 5-6 years.
So-
And I can remember we'd buy the there weren't automatically seat belts in cars at that
Right.
time. And we'd buy the cars, and then the fathers would get together and put seat belts in the cars. So we had seat belts because
my
that
goodness.
made the kid, we didn't have aids and stuff, you know. And I can remember Rick and Danny McCrory and Bright over at Martin Bright over at Hayesville, Mifflin. They rode in the back seat backwards, and then there was the middle seat with 3 kids, and then one person, usually
front.
Karen Smith, rode in the front with me. So, and then we went to vans, and then to buses. So we progressed.
That's when the Senate bill was passed.
Okay.
Yep, October 1967.
So before that, it was a group of volunteers, but once the bill was passed, then it was an official board?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when everything was formalized and
Yeah, it was actually called the Ashland County Council for Retarded Children, and it was a group started by the parents, but it was representatives from also the Granges in Ashland County were really strong at that time. And I can remember going out and speaking to Granges and getting monies to bring back. I will never forget, and we did get money from United Appeal at that time, and I'll never forget Raymond Hiller. He was president of the council for a while, and he was a simple farmer guy. And I can remember him standing up one time at a meeting, and he talked about the misfortune child. He always called him the misfortune child.
Really?
And he hated to go before the United Appeal because that was begging for money for the misfortune child. He just, he was quite a guy.
And he was a parent and had a son that we currently still serve in our program.
He is.
And that's
He
one of the things
is.
that, I'm sure Dave could elaborate on better than me, that the services that the county board provides are lifelong. Whereas in many, you think of a school or a program where someone enters the system and at some point they're going to graduate and that school district has done their part. In the county board of DD system, it's a lifelong commitment.
Yeah.
Kind of elaborate what Bruce said, we do begin serving kids at birth and all through their whole life, through their senior years, and it's a lifelong commitment. It's also a lifelong funding commitment too. And even though we're recognized by the Delroy School, the community mostly, but that's only about 20% of our expenditures, because we fund the residential side 24/7 for these individuals so they can live a fulfilling life in the community to the best of their ability. So it takes a lot of money, a lot of commitment, and volunteers, even though it's a job as a board member, they've worked hard all these years to build what we have, and the need continues to grow. We're not going out of business by any means. Our enrollment's as high as it's ever been.